They're tricking us to enslave ourselves, and that's how powerful mind control can be, because especially if someone thinks they're in control of their own behavior, as a mind control expert, that's where I want to start. That's great. Like, if you think you can't be controlled, you're going to be really easy to control. The sun makes you strong. It's, sort of like the Superman effect. You get strong in the sun, they're going to tell you the sun is bad and to put some sunblock on. The foods that make us healthy and strong, they've been demonized. I mean, fat is a great, unadulterated fat, nothing that's being pasteurized. They only maintain their power by destroying yours. If you're decreasing your poison, you're increasing your power and you're taking it away from the ruling group. You are winning. Celebrate your victories. It's not an all or nothing pursuit.
Hi, welcome to the first ever episode of my new series, Deprogrammed, Natural Truths and Real Solutions. And in this series, we'll be pulling back the curtain on the systems, seen and unseen, that keep us humans and our animals sick, stressed and disconnected. And my guests and I, very importantly, will be offering real practical tools for awareness, healing and sovereignty. And today's conversation is really foundational to all of this. We're diving deep into trauma. Even trauma that you may not consciously be aware of can be used as a tool for control, not just on a personal level, but across entire societies. So if you've ever wondered why people act against their own best interest, or why so many comply without question, this is the conversation for you. And I honestly couldn't think of a more perfect guest to kick this series off than Jason Christoff. So before we dive deep, Jason, I'm just going to introduce you to my audience. I'm sure a lot of them will know you, but for those that don't, Jason is a globally respected expert in psychological reprogramming. He runs an international institute where he educates on mind control, behavior modification, psychological manipulation, propaganda, self-sabotage, and brainwashing, helping people to understand how these forces shape their lives. And through his work, Jason empowers individuals to identify and reprogram the subconscious beliefs and patterns that may be holding them back from their true potential. And his training not only helps shift people's own lives, but also equips coaches and practitioners to do the same for others, but this time with conscious awareness and consent. Jason has recently shared his insights on mind control and psychological manipulation at the US Senate, the EU Parliament, the Japanese Parliament, Romania's Palace of Parliament, and inside a breakout room at CPAC, Washington, D.C. So today he brings a powerful mix of research, lived experience, and deep insight into how we're being programmed, and most importantly, how we break free. So you have been busy, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Catherine. Thanks for having me on today. It's a pleasure to talk with your audience and educate them. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's what you do best. I mean, I've been following your work literally for years. I can't even remember how many years. And what I love about your work is the way that you can explain so clearly to people where the problems are, but most importantly, the number of solutions you bring to us. So I'd really like to kick off today by, can you start by telling the audience how trauma um, can be used as a form of mind control? Because a lot of people watching won't necessarily think they've experienced trauma.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk these days about unrealized trauma. And if you want to start with the basics, it's really, you have to come to the basics of, let's say, when I was a child and how trauma can be used for mind control purposes. Let's say I was a smaller child in, say, grade 3, and there would be a grade 6 large male come up to me and say, "You're going to give me your lunch money." And I would say no, and he'd punch me in the face. That's trauma. And the next time he asks, he's controlling my mind. through the trauma that I will face if I don't do what he says. And this is the basics of a lot of mind control, is this power differential, weakening the victim and getting the victim to comply with your demands. So a lot of it isn't complex in relation to what the mind controller knows he or she's doing to you, but it might be complex to, say, the average person if they're a mind control victim, because they don't understand there's very subtle ways that a mind controller can make you weaker so that you do comply with their suggestions, which aren't usually so obvious. Just you'll have a hard time picking them up. But basically, the weaker you are, the more I can knock you down, the more there's a part of the brain that will know if you're weak or strong, and it will make these decisions for you outside your conscious awareness. So there's basically a part of the brain that does a lot of stuff on your behalf that you don't have control of. You know what your heart is beating right now, you're not in control. Your digestion is going on right now, you're not in control. Your hair is growing, your eyes are blinking. There's a lot of things you're aware of that you don't control. You think your behavior's in your full possession, but it's not, unfortunately. And if you're sort of weak mentally, financially, like health wise, even spiritually, the whole aggregate sort of level of your strength will be determined by the subconscious mind in relation to maybe challenges or intrusions by an authority figure. And if the subconscious does these equations and in milliseconds. And if you're coming up as too weak to resist the demands or orders of an authority figure, this part of your nervous system will make you comply. You might not know any of these steps, but mind control experts in our society know all of these steps. They really know how to knock you down. I'll give you one example. Guilt and shame knock you down mentally, but you can't see it on your person physically. You'll look the same, you'll talk the same, you'll think you're thinking the same, but you're not. So a good mind controller can knock you down in ways where it's not going to be like an abusive back of the hand, like, a drunken husband from the movies in the 1940s. They don't need to do that. They can just knock you down in very subtle ways and say in the year 2020 or 2021, they would use guilt and shame to make you more compliant because you would always be more compliant the weaker you are. That's why, say, the bully who's a grade 6 and I was a grade 3 and stealing my lunch money, it's pretty obvious there's a power differential. But I can create the power differential as a mind control expert, knock you down saying, if you don't do what I say, you're going to kill someone's grandmother. I just knocked you down. And then I'll knock you down again. I'll say, you got to stay home from your business until we get this sorted. So financially, you get knocked down. Guilt and shame, I knock you down. Then I'll scare you and run ticker tape along the bottom of the news shows 24 hours a day about deaths. But you're in the UK, and I'm not too sure if you're aware that 1% of the population dies every year. I think you got like 60 million people in the United Kingdom. So that means 600,000 die every year anyway. Like in 2019, 600,000 died. 1% of the population on average dies every calendar year. I can scare you, and that accesses another part of the brain that's not really super high IQ, called the limbic system or the R complex or the reptilian brain. I just knocked you down again because you're now in a lower IQ part of the brain. So a good mind control expert doesn't have to put their hands on you to make you weaker. And that's sort of the foundation of trauma-based mind control, is that I'm going to come at you with suggestions, whether they're direct or indirect, and the weaker you are, the more you're going to comply.
That is so brilliantly explained. It really is. And when you were talking about that, I do a lot of work, Jason, with animals, and with traumatized animals. And it's really interesting when we look at animals who've been traumatized, because they give off pheromones. It's not just behavior. They give
Mm-hmm.
off, whether you want to call it energy, the pheromones that they've measured that other animals can pick up. And us humans aren't aware of that so much. So when people in your vicinity are succumbing to this mind control trauma, how do you think, from your experience, that has a knock-on effect on spreading it even quicker through society, through these other channels like energy channels, the matrix, the ether, pheromones, etc.?
This is this is a couple chapters in the mind controller's manual.
Mm,
It will never be shared with the average person because I mean, if you go to school in our conventional system, you're only taught about the physical, like the science that you're taught is all about things you can touch and smell and measure. But that's not the science of our ancient ancestors who have pioneered this mind control manual. And they know that fear can be felt person to person through, I think it was
yeah,
Sheldrake talked about biophotonic communication, which really means they're invisible there's a Wi-Fi
mm,
that's being copied. Like everybody knows about our Wi-Fi. I could ask a person, where's the Wi-Fi? And they're like, well, it's invisible. You can't see it, but it's in the air. But they would poo-poo any idea that there's
yeah,
invisible communication between humans, even though they know invisible communication. They do it every day with their cell phones or their Wi-Fi or their wireless communication. So again, yeah, fear is contagious. It can spread in that way. And they're aware of this. I mean, even something called the McClintock effect, that is the effect where females in sororities, their periods are lining up. And humans love to copy. I mean, this is another basis of mind control, but this is invisible copying. There's something communicating between humans, and basically when sorority members or females in general vicinity for a longer period of time, there's something invisible communicating between themselves. And part of the bonding ritual of all humans is they want to be part of the tribe. They want to fit in. They want to be like everybody else. And you can see it's almost down to an invisible level. We're so obsessed with trying to fit in. It's almost like there's invisible handshaking going on between the females saying, hey, I have my period the same time as you. Can we be friends?
yeah,
It's kind of cute in that way. And yeah, we are communicating between each other, and the group ruling us know that. And again, there's mind control has various modalities. The more you stack them on top of each other, the more effective they are. And this is another reason they sent us home for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. So when people are at home and they're afraid, they will go to the TV, and it's the TV that's going to put in the authority-based messages and what's called the psychological nudging. In the UK, you had BIT. It
mm,
was the Behavioral Insights team, and they weren't health professionals. Like 90% of who was working on the Behavioral Insights team were basically behavioral psychological experts, and they were the ones consulting with the UK government about what the next step would be.
yeah,
So they weren't health professionals. They basically, there's a dark hand behind the scenes, has its particular end goal. And the only reason that, I mean, everything that's going on in our society is based on mind control. That's why my new documentary I'm releasing this fall is called Planet Mind Control. It's everything. Everything that's being done to us is being done in a way where we are being psychologically manipulated to volunteer for whatever they really want us to do. They're tricking us to enslave ourselves. And that's
Yeah.
how powerful mind control can be, because especially if someone thinks they're in control of their own behavior, as a mind control expert, that's where I want to start. And that's great. Like if you think you can't be controlled, you're going to be really easy to control.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, I've spent since the 2020 fiasco a lot of time speaking to cult survivors or people who've been in cults and have got out, and they're the best people to see how these tools are being implanted
Mm.
in every day, because most people refuse to admit that they can be mind controlled. It's absolutely incredible, actually, how much denial there is out there. Why do you think that is?
I think we have some self-protection mechanisms, and we are hardwired to our benefit to basically follow the leader.
Yeah.
And we do that more so in childhood. If you measure the mimicking effect of a human, it's 10 times more intense up until, say, the age of 10 than beyond the age of 10. And let's say 5,000 years ago, you're in a camp and you're just 2 years old, so you're not really doing too much to contribute to the tribe. But you're always watching. There's a path that leaves the village, and everybody's taking the right-hand path. And no one takes the left-hand path, and you're going to download that and copy. And you find out later, no one takes the left-hand path because there's the hornet's nest and the scorpion dunes are down there. The crocodiles are down there. There's some jaguars that have killed villagers if they go down the left-hand path. So we always copy, and that's good if you're in that situation. And we do this automatically. We follow the leader. We absorb the repetitive content of our environment. Unfortunately, the people who rule us know that repetitive content is something this invisible part of the mind homes in on, and we will mimic it and we will adopt it as our own. It's natural. We're literally hardwired to be mind controlled, which is great 5,000 years ago. Unfortunately, this group knows we're hardwired to be mind controlled. Repetitive content is usually what like manufactures people's ideas or opinions or beliefs in their own psyche. But the average person thinks all their ideas, beliefs, and behaviors are organic to them, but
Mm.
they're not. That's the big issue.
And I think so many of us are really understanding that we've been lied to about so much, history, medicine, and even the fact that all people talk about in the scientific circles is almost your five senses. And the way that most humans live now is so disconnected from nature and other species, whether they be plant or animals. We've almost lost touch with that intuition that can help us when we're being directed like lemmings off the cliff. Talk us through what you know about that, what your research and work shows about that, and how that's been a deliberate ploy to disconnect people from a lifestyle that might keep them safer.
Absolutely. And again, it's not complex. It just comes back to if your intuition is down, you're a little weaker. If you don't know how to grow your own food, you're a little weaker. If you have a high diet of blue light because you stay inside the house too much, you're a little weaker. The sun makes you strong. It's, sort of like the Superman effect. You get strong in the sun, they're going to tell you the sun is bad and to put some sunblock on. The foods that make us healthy and strong, they've been demonized. I mean, fat is a great, I mean, unadulterated fat, nothing that's been pasteurized. All these secrets are coming to the surface now. Foods that make us healthy, they've demonized. Instead of butter, they told us to eat margarine, stay away from the sun, told us about a fake hole in the ozone layer that doesn't exist. And away they went, and it never ends. And it's scary too. And they I don't think people remember. I mean, leaded gas, acid rain, the killer bees, the hole in the ozone, ISIS, Al Qaeda, terrorism, weapons of mass destruction, the shoe bomber, West Nile virus. I mean, it never ends because they're always trying to scare us in one way or the other because a frightened mind is a weaker mind.
Yeah.
When you put fear through the nervous system, the smart part of the brain's behind the forehead. It's called the prefrontal cortex. It's what makes us human. Everything great about humanity is here behind the forehead. But if you're afraid, that part actually gets less blood flow and very little electrical connectivity. And then when you're afraid, there's this area in the back of your skull called the limbic system, again, the reptilian brain or the R complex or the hindbrain. It's very low IQ. And again, you're weaker because you're not in your highest intellectual potential. So everything this group does is about knocking us down. And they knew they really had to knock us down to get us complying at all with what went on in 2020. And you can't do that to a healthy, independent, and strong population, what they did in 2020. They knew that. And this is how long these operations are. It's like they knew they had to poison us and weaken us for at least 70 years before they pulled the 2020 nonsense on us. And we're having a hard time getting out of it because they'll interview this doctor and this scientist or this politician who might even sound anti-system or very revealing of what's going on today. You can't figure out what's going on if you just talk about today.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem. We'll have this doctor, and it'll be a great doctor that's saying all the right things. This scientist, this past vice president of Pfizer, his name, everybody knows his name. I love that guy. But they'll give people like that all the stage because the group attacking us are hundreds or thousands of years old.
Yeah.
That's how they've compiled all this knowledge, especially the invisible attacks that are more magical than they are scientific. And they know we'll never figure it out. They'll let you do as much commentary about what went on in the past 5 years because what went on 100 years ago or 500 years ago or 250 years ago would say Edward Jenner, the man who supposedly invented vaccination and things like this. No one's connecting the dots in the past. We're not going to get anywhere talking about what happened over the past 5 years, unfortunately.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things I've noticed, Jason, that I'd really love your perspective on, even in the whatever you want to call it, whether it's the alternative media, the people that are questioning things a lot more, there's still a very high vibe, in my opinion, of fear and that all this is being done to us. So, for example, if you take geoengineering, which I 100% know is happening, but often it's put across in a way where it keeps making people feel less empowered, less able to do anything, more hopeless. So what are your thoughts on that? What can we as communities, people who are questioning things, do to stop even the alternative things that are coming out of the woodwork and are being brought to light, push us still down into that fear vibration?
Basically, I try to give a combination of this is really what's going on, but these are the solutions. So something
Yeah.
like geoengineering, I think we could really address very quickly. We could arrest the pilots.
Yeah.
There's ways to track these planes flying over. There's ways to track where they land and where they take off from. We can do a citizen's arrest of the geoengineering pilots, whether they need the jobs or not, to spray us with poison. And obviously, it's more than that. I mean, when you go through the government school system, they make you so inept that you'll never be able to take care of yourself financially. So,
Yeah.
of course, that will be a willing pawn. That person, man or woman, will be a willing pawn in whatever game the ruling group wants to put on the chessboard because they're too inept because they went to the government school system. But yes, we could still it's a systematic rot is what it is, but I say we can arrest these people on a citizen's basis and jail them and charge them personally. But I think it is important to say, like I use the harsh tabling of truth to try and wake people up. But then I say, look, it's very simple. I have 5,000 articles. I've been interviewed 500 times. I have 200 plus solo podcasts, and I tell people it doesn't matter which one you read or listen to, they're weakening you.
Yeah.
Everything they do, whether it's geoengineering and you suck in a bit of poison through the air, doesn't hurt you one day, but over time it makes you weak. One shot, one vaccine prior to 2020, probably not going to do a lot of damage. It'll do some damage for sure, but it's not going to drop you on the floor of the clinic like the ones from 2020 forward were doing. But this is all, it's that Fabianistic approach called death by a thousand cuts.
Yeah.
They want to do it so slowly. They don't, I mean, they used to want to do it so slowly to you. Now they really want to accelerate your death, your premature death, and your disease. But it's all weakening. And the way to push back here is, you got to get strong and you got to know all the ways they're making you weak, the shame, the guilt, all the emotional manipulation. All the shows on Netflix are violence and killing and stabbing. And this is proven to weaken you. Even if you do a muscle test before and when you start watching a Netflix show, you'll fail the muscle test
Yeah.
during a Netflix show, even because it just weakens the whole system. You're not supposed to expose yourself to terror and killing. And if you watch Kathy O'Brien's documentary Trance, if you
Yeah.
really want to know how trauma-based mind control operates on individuals, and Kathy O'Brien will even say the scariest part was not what was done to her, even though it was super scary, but she figured it out that what they were doing to her as an individual, they were going to try and do to whole nations through things like Netflix.
Yeah.
Because Kathy actually had people killed in front of her to completely radicalize and shut down the nervous system, which really weakens a person to the point they're going to do anything you say. And they knew they couldn't go around killing one other person in front of everybody else in the world, but they would hook up the monitors to subjects, show on a screen the killing of another human, and it would have the same effect in the viewer as Kathy experienced in real life with her neurological changes. So you don't need, they were just going to pump in the terror and the trauma through the screens. And this is why everybody today is a little off with their morality and their ethics. They
Yeah.
can't push back. They use their yes when they should be using their no. They're afraid to speak up because they don't understand watching 20 years of Netflix is going to buckle you to the strength potential of a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
But you look like a 40-year-old. You're 6'2", you're 220 pounds. But when you're poisoning yourself because they've impregnated that habit into you, when you're watching these shows, when you're leading an unhealthy lifestyle, you literally have what's called no mental resilience, which is something David Hodge, mind control expert, taught me. You don't have the ability to push back on them. Even you don't have the energy, the cellular energy you don't have because you're sick, you're toxic, you're diseased, you're poisoned.
And we are seeing this so much. I mean, I've got children who are in their early 20s now, and I've got a lot of friends who've got children who are teenagers still. And the difference, even 5 years of the schooling system, of the lack of resilience is absolutely horrific. And I just wanted to ask you about this. I saw this today, Jason. A recent study indicated that 55%, I'm smiling, I shouldn't do, of self-identified leftists believe that assassinating former President Donald Trump could be somewhat justifiable. And to me, when I heard that, and I actually, I just couldn't believe, well, I could believe it, that's the problem, is the level of brainwashing. Talk about, they've been so successful about getting the masses to do their dirty work for them. And as you started off with, but to walk into their own cage like V for Vendetta. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, they want you to take a side because once you take a side, they got you. And they got you in various ways. They do use this. It's a tribal affiliation. This is why we love our sports teams and will violently defend our sports teams. And it's naturally in us. Most of these mechanisms that we see in play or that the mind controller is taking advantage of, it's simply they're already natural functions inside the human, psyche or body or nervous system, and they're being used against us. And our tribal affiliations, you see in the US right now, when Biden was in say 2020, 2021, he was firing people that didn't take the shot, and people were outraged. And the people who were on his team, it's usually either a red or blue team. I
Yeah.
guess Biden would be the blue team in the US. Well, he's our guy. He can do no wrong. But the other people, the red team in the United States, as Biden was firing people, were up in arms. You can't fire people for not doing what you say. And now the red team is firing people in the United States. And the red team fans are like, yes, it's okay if we do it. It's okay if we do it because our guy can do no wrong. And this is the ultimate form of brainwashing, is because both of the players, what the average person doesn't see with their rabid endorsement of their star quarterback, is basically the destruction of the constitutional protections afforded to everybody.
Yeah.
That's what they're not seeing, is that this clever group is making you sign an invisible contract tacitly that you're okay when the Constitution doesn't apply to certain groups because others are in power. So you have a complete disintegration of the constitutional protections afforded to all United States citizens. And this group is very clever. Like, let's say they're deporting the Venezuelan gang, and a lot of people say, well, they should. Well, of course they should, but they're in the United States. So when a charge is leveled against you in the United States, you have a right to an attorney, and you have a right to participate in the legal system. And the reason it's so dangerous is because they're deporting them without legal representation, which chips away at the U.S. Constitution. Now, the average person who doesn't know anything 100 years ago, 200 years ago, doesn't understand that, yeah, you're going to vote tacitly that that's okay to get rid of these super irritating, violent gang members from Venezuela. But what you don't understand is your energy is now behind the destruction of the Constitution. It will go from violent gang members to people who question the standing dictator to everybody.
Exactly.
And it will start where it's logical to bypass the constitutional protections afforded to people in the United States. And then it will just go to where you never thought it would go. But you can't bring that wrecking ball back because you didn't say anything when it was time to say something. So it's not anti-Trump to say, look, they're stepping all over the Constitution and making you forget that it even exists. And once that is done historically, you lose your rights and freedoms afforded to you by the original documents that are still existing in most countries today. They're trying to get rid of all those documents, and at first they have to get rid of them in spirit.
Oh, so true. So true. Why do you think, Jason, that some people can see it? I mean, I strongly believe that we are all brainwashed and we all succumb to propaganda at some level. But why do you think some people can see through it so much clearer than others? So I'm a twin. I've got a twin sister. and we couldn't be more different, which sort of buggers up the nature nurture argument a little bit. So why do you think some people, of course, some people develop it at different stages in their life, but some people can see through it pretty much from early childhood as well? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, to be honest with you, there's various factors. And this group really wants to narrow down those factors. Like, what is it about me and you where we don't fall for their liarrhea? This is another reason they want to data mine everything,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
they really want to narrow down that reason. Um, I think most people are somewhat intelligent, but intelligence without strength is sort of useless.
Mm.
So you can be intelligent, and if you're not strong, and we got to see this, I got to see this in a lot of the people I just gave blind faith respect to before 2020. I just say, oh, he's a pretty successful guy. He seems strong. I respect him. But what I didn't know is that my friends, a lot of them were intelligent, but they lacked the strength. They were so socially inclined that their social group and their social identity and their social standing was so important to them that they complied with something that bypassed their genetic self-preservation mechanism, which is the ultimate form of mind control
Yeah.
infiltration. And so they didn't have strength to couple with their intelligence. They used their intelligence to walk themselves into a very dangerous ambush, a very dangerous lie. And because it was easier, which means they're weak. They didn't have the strength to face the reality. And in our society, we're all born strong. So one of the
Yeah.
mind control programs is to take the strong human and make that human into what I just described, where this is why they'll take our kids in school and no one gets last place anymore. No one's allowed to fail
Mm.
the class, because when you fail or get judged as sort of not up to speed or not up to par, the pain can transform you into a stronger human being. And they don't allow that anymore. In order to really mature from a child to an adult, it's been proven in psychology, you need like pain, discomfort, and failure.
Yeah.
And those are the three things they'll never allow us to feel in our society. That's sort of a side dish, a side psychological operation that they run continually. Make sure they never fail. Keep
Mm.
promoting them no matter what. No one finishes last. There's safe zones at school. And even in certain groups now, you can commit crimes, especially in the UK. You're off scot-free depending on criteria that has nothing to do with the legal system operating as it should be. And so you're never held to task for your inadequacies.
Yeah.
And that will backfire. Of course it's going to backfire. Of course that's why they're doing it, because if the natural maturation and individuation process is triggered by pain, failure, and discomfort, and you're a mind controller, knowing it's easier to control children or like adults that act, talk, and think like children compared to really empowered, fully functional adults, of course you're going to give them the coffee, the alcohol, the marijuana, the cigarettes, because all those things are sedators. They block pain transmission.
Yeah.
So everything in our society, whether it's sort of a policy that everybody finishes with a ribbon, or whether it's like we'll flood the slave camp with as many sedative compounds that block pain transmission as possible, you're actually blocking maturation. You're actually making sure the person never becomes a strong, fully functional adult. And I could see that in 2020, where all my adult friends were so busy to do childish, infantilized things like
Yeah.
go wait in line and demand a medical experiment. And none of it made any sense.
Mm.
They said it was safe and effective, but none of the manufacturers of the safe and effective product had any legal liability for any deaths or injuries. So if it's safe and effective, why is there a concern about death or injuries to the point where you have to indemnify the manufacturers of said experiment? none of it made any sense.
Yeah.
An adult could have picked it out. A child mind bypassed it and really said, look, I like the illusion better. It feels cozier in the fake feel good illusion. I'm not really strong enough to push back. So I'm going to be dominated by the authority figure because strength without intelligence is useless.
Oh, so true. I mean, for people that are listening to this, and we are sort of preaching to the converted in some respect, but a lot of people are still having a hard time knowing what they can actually do. So, what are some of your top tips for where people can start to really take their power back and really, first of all, understand when they're being subject to this programming, do something for themselves, and get the message out there more, really?
Well, God, whatever name you have for God, that's fine. But the natural design of the human system, it can identify these psyops, things that don't make
Mm.
sense, things that are purposely confusing, can identify a bully, and you can identify someone who's not working in your best interest. So you have to sort of move back gradually, and everybody can do this, move back gradually toward your natural function. And which means acknowledge and recognize that they've weakened you to the point where you're scared or you don't feel like you got the energy to deal with this, or you don't have the mental resiliency to deal with their constant attacks and
Mm.
tsunamis of diarrhea that come out of the mainstream media all the time. Get your power back by getting your health back. So there's sort of 5 pillars of strength that you need to develop. There's like emotional, physical, financial, spiritual, and intellectual. Doesn't matter about all 5. The base pillar upon which the other 4 rest on is your physical pillar of strength.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you don't know anything about psychology. You don't have to know anything about psychology. You don't know how to, you don't, you don't need to know anything. Just go into your fridge, go into your cupboard, and know they can mind control you to do anything. So if you're poisoning yourself by your own hand, and you've tried to quit poisoning yourself by your own hand and you find it difficult, you're under mind control. And don't be surprised, but you're going to have to chip away at that. Get on my email list and I'll teach
Yeah.
you how to do this for free. Just email me at info@jchristoff.com. Single initial J, Christoff is Christ with an OFF on the end. So info@jchristoff.com, but just go in, like, don't even change anything. Just say, am I poisoning myself by my own hand? Am I working a job I don't enjoy? Why can't I change any of this? Why is it like Groundhog Day all the time? Christmas, I'm running around. I got no money. I'm always in debt. I'm worried about what the Joneses will think of me if I don't get the right presents or have the Christmas decorations up in time. What is it with this life that I don't like in regards to me not being able to do anything about it?
Yeah.
And if you want to make a change, it'll start with, to make a change, it takes energy because you got to push back on all this group pressure, all this coercion, all this bullying. You can't do that as a weakened individual. If you get physically strong, you get mentally strong. You're going to accomplish both at the same time. So there's one book, and this guy doesn't even know I promote his book all the time. Best book on health. You only have to buy one little book. It's a guy called Paul Chek.
I've
C
done
A
his training. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
amazing. That book is
yeah,
incredible. Yeah.
yeah. It's CHEK, and his
Mm.
book is How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. Read it at your leisure. You got lots of time. Implement things at your leisure. You got lots of time, and you'll start getting your power back. And then you'll start talking like me, good
Mhm.
communicator. You'll have more energy. You'll reorganize your house, maybe. You'll go on a diet. You'll start going to the gym and then learning the discipline, right? This is what they don't want you to
Mm.
learn because you can apply discipline to any goal, including dethroning them,
Yeah.
right? So they don't want you learning how to do anything. They don't want you accomplishing any goal and gaining your strength back because, again, as you mentioned, the invisible is super in play here, is that they only maintain their power by destroying yours. So when you take your power back, and power is a real thing, it's also etheric, which means it's in the air, which means it's invisible. When you take your power back, it's been proven, because in physics, we all know energy can be neither created or destroyed. So if the power is coming back into your life, and you'll actually feel it, you'll feel more powerful, more confident, with more self-esteem, more self-assured. Where did it come from? It came from them. And there's an invisible etheric suction that you're disempowering the powerful group as you become more powerful. They don't want you knowing that because it comes from them, because you're only getting back what was rightfully yours, but who had it in the first place? They stole it or tricked you to volunteer your energy away. So you just eat well, energy comes back, proper hydration, proper exercise, get in the sun. They're inversion experts. Everything they say is inverted and backwards, right? So usually everything they say is a lie. Whatever they're doing, do the complete opposite in most cases, and you're going to find your life skyrocket in regards to energy and power and self-empowerment. So just start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And if you're drinking one bottle of wine a night and you go down to half, please be aware you just cut your poison intake in that particular area by 50%. You don't have to go to zero, but you'll feel that 50% victory energetically, and you're like, oh, I like that feeling. Maybe I'll go down to a third of a bottle a night. And then you go down to zero and you hold it for 2 weeks, and then you go back to half a bottle one night. Then you do 3 weeks with no alcohol. Do you see the victories you're making and the battle you're winning, even though you're still inside the problem? That's what you have to look. Do not judge yourself as all or nothing. If you're decreasing your poison, you're increasing your power and you're taking it away from the ruling group. You are winning. Celebrate your victories. It's not an all or nothing pursuit.
I absolutely love that. There's so much I want to ask you about, but I'm so conscious of the time. So I want to finish off,
Well,
Jake.
you can ask. If you need more, just let me know. But maybe you have your class for 45 minutes. But it's
No,
okay.
no, that's absolutely fine. Okay, if I can, I'll ask. I want to switch on to you and how you apply all of this in your life, because a lot of us, and I would put my hand up with this, is sometimes when you're understanding all this, it can be quite traumatic in itself, particularly if you're not necessarily surrounded by other people that you can have these discussions with, and all think you're crazy. So, with the journey that you've been on, what are some of your biggest lessons on a personal note, and what are you working most on at the moment?
I think the big lesson is, yeah, absolutely. It's easy to turn away from these truths, the government. I mean, these are harsh realities.
Mm.
These are frightening, but it's not so frightening if you're processing this harsh reality with nature's original design. And if I wasn't healthy, I was a student of Paul Chek as well. I've been on Paul's podcast one time. And if I wasn't healthy, I couldn't channel or absorb any of the information that I take in. So I take in some of the scariest
Yeah,
information of the entire world. I know what they're planning. It's extra scary because, like, the guy next to me thinks that his vote counts and that the various actors on the political stage are really there to represent the people. And I'm like, oh, it's not only scary what they're trying to do. We got this guy next to me and this girl on this side believing the liaria of the day that has always ended with mass casualties throughout history,
yeah.
because you can really sneak up on those people. But it's not that hard to process if you're strong. So
Mm.
it's not a complex mousetrap to figure out. It's not a complex mousetrap to to sidestep, but you need your full strength to do so. And that's why it's important to lead by example. Go to that book by Paul Chek, learn over time what a healthy diet is, healthy sleep habits, healthy hydration, what's healthy exercise. And you'll just get stronger and stronger and stronger. And then you'll be able to absorb the fear, deal with reality as it really is. You can see, I mean, I can see why the average person would scurry into a coffee cup in the
Yeah.
morning and scurry into a wine glass at night and quickly turn Netflix on and because it sedates and distracts from reality, and or just hope someone else will take care of it. Poor old little me. Who am I to try and enact any societal change during my lifetime? There's no room in the history books for me, of course. It's got to be someone famous is going to come and save me, and we'll all glorify him or her. That's not the way this goes, and only the weakened mind thinks like this. But if you've always been beaten down by the system, especially men, I mean, want to talk about trauma-based mind control, think about circumcision or something like
Yeah.
this. And that's not an insult to anybody who's done the circumcision already. Don't recoil, but understand, I mean, if you're strong, you should be able to stand in front of it and look at it logically and rationally and think, does this make any sense?
Mm.
I will tell you, if you go back to where circumcision came from, which is the ancient Egyptians, and it was used to mark their slaves. So
Wow.
if a slave got out of the slave zone at someone's farm and had escaped, they would basically run around to the various populated areas of the time, and they wore kilts because they're very related to the UK royals who
Mm.
wear kilts. I'm not too sure people are aware of that. And they would ask everybody to hike up their kilt and look at
Wow.
the penises. And the man that was circumcised was a slave. And it's a trauma-based ritual. It destroys blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, activates the trauma-based limbic system, which is the reptilian brain or the R complex. And yeah, this is a harsh reality that a lot of people, my mom did it to me. She knows I forgive her. She
Mm.
knows I write it about all the time. She knows I talk about it. And it
Yeah.
wasn't just my mom, I like to say as well. Both parents were involved there. I don't want to heap it on my poor mother's shoulders. But they do whatever, I mean, human psychology is simple, right? People do what other people are doing simply because
Yeah.
other people are doing it. We're followers. So this group knows that. That's why they're getting us. I mean, the UK royals do not circumcise their children. And there's a reason for that because they're not the slaves.
Yeah.
And that is washed over to a lot of people in the United Kingdom. There's not a lot of circumcision in the
No.
UK. But in the US, 95% are circumcised. A lot of traumatized men over there.
I had no idea about that because, as I said, in the UK, it's just not a thing unless there's a medical reason, then that might occasionally be done, but it's very, very rare.
Right. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
again, if we talk about what's going on today, we're not going to get to the plot of this video game,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Whoever wrote this video game, you got to look at it, their motivations. It's always about taking this ancient group's rituals and customs and ceremonies and then repackaging them and rebranding them so that we all do them, we all wait in line for them, we all demand them, we all cheer them, we all demand they be funded by the state, but we're really participating in a very ancient black magic slave system, as that's what actually is going on. And I know that's sort of scary for people to hear, but again, it shouldn't be scary because when we're being attacked or our children are being attacked, we're supposed to have the mental resilience to push back.
Hmm.
And if you don't have that mental resilience, that you should be using your voice, or you're too afraid to speak up or investigate this stuff because the seventh edition of Yellowstone is on or the final episode, like you're going to be ground into hamburger patty by this
Yeah.
group very soon. So the choices are is we can get strong and we can take action, and it doesn't mean you got to go out and protest or get in a fight down at the protest with some uniformed officers. You don't have to do that. Just go into your fridge and go into your cupboards and look at your own lifestyle. Are you getting to bed on time? Are you traumatizing yourself? Like, are you literally sitting on the couch watching people kill and shoot and stab each other? Are you terrifying yourself all the time into a weakened state where you just take what's given to you? Like, as they say, you know, you're taking scraps off Longshank's table. Is really this is what you think you're here to do? You're not here to do that. They've weakened you into this position. So it's your job to get strong. And yeah, it takes time. The old habits will dominate more at the beginning. You'll find it very hard to put the first couple of steps up onto success and abundance and healthy and happiness mountain. But then after you're used to it, that becomes your new normal. And then the old normal fades away. So just keep dedicating to it. I think we still have 5 years to really get strong, start using our voices, push back. And I tell people, become like a reporter of sorts.
Yeah.
You can get a blog, you can do like you can do a podcast. You might get, I mean, I'll push this out for you. We could probably get 15,000 people listening to this interview. And if everybody did that, it's over.
Exactly.
It's over, because if everybody just wrote an article, like I've written 5,000, so I've done my fair share and I'll keep doing it. But if everybody did like a walk and talk or had a podcast or posted some things, and don't accuse or don't use statements. Statements close the mind on a social media post. Questions open the mind. So use questions when you're trying to get people's attention. Don't make inflammatory statements. And if everybody just did that, we would win very, very quickly. So, and a society of empowered adults, I mean, this is the only reason we're here, is to protect the innocent and the defenseless, the infirm, and the elderly. That's the only reason we're here. And most people today are actually sacrificing their own kids and their grandparents so they have an easier walk through Satan's realm. And it's completely illogical and irrational. And to see how irrational and illogical it is, you need your brain back online. That means you got to get healthy. Get Paul Chek's book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, and you can start getting your power back very, very easily without having to take too many steps outside your own kitchen.
I absolutely love it. Now, I'm going to put obviously all your links below, but a lot of people listening to this think that some of the work you do is just for high-powered coaches, etc. Tell people who are listening how they can get involved in some of your programs.
Well, I have 2 flagship programs, and I run them a couple times per year. But basically, if they get on my email list, they'll learn about them. I do a lot of free education on the list, and then I tell people, look, you know, the class is open for the next 6 weeks if you want to get in, and then it shuts, and we just do free education for the next 4 or 5 months till the class is open again. So we're not always advertising. And if you want the free education on mind control, brainwashing, propaganda, or what's going on behind the scenes that you're not being shown, because we do a lot of things that are hidden from the public.
Yeah.
You got to see what's going, like, you got to be informed about what they're not telling you. That's what my specialty is look at this stuff that they're not telling you what's going on, where they're going, what their goals are, who's involved, how they're doing it. These are the most important aspects. So basically, just get on my email list, info@jchristoff.com. That's my personal email. I'll put you on my list, and then we can travel together, and you can get educated, sort of like an IV drip, a little drip at a time. I don't want you trying to drink water from a fire hose. Just start learning the patterns, because you have to be a pattern recognition expert to survive in the world today, or even thrive. You have to know the overarching themes, what they're doing in all the countries, which again is the erosion of all people's natural human rights. And you got to know all their tricks, because this group throughout history is a very uncreative, low IQ group. So they're always rebranding their same tricks. And if you can see their tricks, you can see the rebrand, and you can sort of laugh at them and sidestep their attempts to enslave you. The worst thing you want to do is be so weak that you give your yes when you should be giving your no, and volunteer for your worst life. If you're going to lead, if you're going to die early, don't volunteer for it.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, thank you so much. I'll put all your details below. Everyone, we really need to get on Jason's list. The information you've got is amazing. I'm going to link to one of your videos on YouTube as well, which is phenomenal. Thank you so much, Jason, not just for your time today, but for all the help you're giving all of us, and also for your calmness through this journey, because it's really, really important. Some of those tips that you said there about how we can all communicate for success a little bit better than, I can be known for being a bit over emotional at times. So I take that on board. Any final words you want to leave everyone with?
Just start with your health. It's the easiest thing you could do wherever you are right now. Just step into your kitchen and make one small change every day, or even every week, and you'd be surprised where that goes over time. So thanks for having me on, Catherine.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. This helps us spread the word, and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. And above all, stay curious and stay free.